You're looking at two fish tanks sitting side by side on the same shelf, same size, same fish, same light, same room temperature. The tank on the left has a $60 canister filter humming behind it, a bottle of bacteria starter on the shelf, and a replacement cartridge due next Tuesday. The water has a faint green haze you have learned to accept as normal. The tank on the right has no filter, no hum, no cartridge, no chemical bottle anywhere near it. 3 houseplants are sitting on top of it with their roots dangling into the water. The water is so clear it looks empty. I set up both of these tanks in my fish house 11 months ago. I have not touched the one on the right since. I want to show you what those 3 plants are, why they work, and why nobody selling you aquarium equipment wants you to know that the most powerful filtration system on the planet is sitting in the garden section of your local store for $4. If nobody has ever shown you this before, that is not an accident. Subscribe and stay with me because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. What I am about to walk you through are 3 specific land plants, not aquatic plants, land plants, that you can place on top of any fish tank this weekend for a combined cost of under $12. Between them, they absorb ammonia, consume nitrate, strip phosphates, trap suspended waste, host beneficial bacteria across thousands of square inches of root surface, and in one case, continue cleaning your water at night when every other plant in the tank has stopped. The pet store will never recommend them because not one of these plants is sold in the aquarium aisle. And that is the entire problem. My name is Isamu Yoshida. I am a 3rd-generation koi breeder in Niigata Prefecture, Japan. I have been keeping fish for over 50 years. My grandfather kept land plants growing over every indoor tank in our fish house for as long as I can remember, not for decoration, for filtration. He never called them houseplants. He called them the lungs of the water. Most people think the only plants that belong in an aquarium are the ones that grow underwater: Java fern, anubias, hornwort, the standard list. And those plants do work. I have talked about them on this channel before. But here is what almost nobody in the Western aquarium hobby understands. A submerged aquatic plant absorbs nutrients through its leaves from the water column. It does this slowly, passively, and only during the hours it is receiving light. The moment the light goes off, photosynthesis stops, the plant stops consuming nitrate, and in many species, the plant actually begins releasing carbon dioxide back into the water. A land plant, with its roots in the water and its leaves in the air, operates on a completely different system. The leaves photosynthesize using atmospheric carbon dioxide, unlimited supply, no competition with the fish for dissolved oxygen. The roots, submerged in tank water, function as a dedicated extraction network, pulling ammonia, nitrate, nitrite, phosphate, and dissolved organic compounds directly out of the water 24 hours a day. Here is the number that changes everything. A single mature peace lily with a root mass roughly the size of your fist provides approximately 2,400 square inches of bacterial colonization surface in its root network alone. Your $40 hang-on-back filter cartridge provides 28. That is an 85-to-1 ratio. And the peace lily does not need replacing every 4 to 6 weeks. It grows. The surface area increases every month, the bacterial colony expands, the filtration capacity of your tank gets stronger over time, instead of collapsing every time you swap a cartridge. Researchers at NASA, not an aquarium company, not a pet store, NASA, published a study in 1989 called the Clean Air Study, documenting the ability of common houseplants to remove toxic compounds from enclosed environments. 3 of the top performers in that study are the same 3 plants I'm about to show you. NASA proved they strip toxins from air. What nobody told you is that they do the same thing to water, and they do it better because the root system is in direct liquid contact with the dissolved compounds instead of filtering them passively through air currents. If what you just heard about that 85-to-1 ratio made you look at the plastic cartridge on the side of your tank differently, I need you to do 3 things right now. Hit subscribe because every video on this channel exposes exactly this kind of buried knowledge. Hit the like button because that is how the algorithm shows this to the next fish keeper who is about to spend $40 on another cartridge that does the work of a $4 houseplant. And drop a comment right now. How many filter cartridges have you thrown away in the last year? Count them, drop the number. I read every single one. In Japan, the relationship between land plants and water is not a hack. It is a design philosophy. The concept of Satoyama, the managed border between mountain wilderness and cultivated village land, is built on the principle that water, soil, plants, and animals form one interconnected system. You do not manage them separately, you manage the connections between them. My grandfather's fish house in Niigata was designed the same way. The koi ponds outside were bordered by reeds and grasses whose roots filtered runoff before it entered the water. The indoor tanks had potted plants sitting on wooden racks above them, roots trailing into the water, leaves reaching toward the window. He was not decorating. He was engineering a closed nutrient loop using the same principles rice farmers in the Yamakoshi region had been using since the 1600s, land plants and water animals in one system, each feeding the other, neither requiring chemical intervention. When Western aquarium manufacturers started selling mechanical filters in the 1960s and 1970s, they solved a real problem. Most people did not have room for a pond bordered by reed beds. But they solved it by removing biology from the equation and replacing it with plastic and carbon. The solution worked well enough to sell. It did not work well enough to stop selling, and that was the point. Here is why the pet store does not put a peace lily next to the filter display with a sign that says this does the same job for $4. The average freshwater aquarium hobbyist in the United States spends between $85 and $140 per year on replacement filter cartridges. Add bacteria starter, water conditioner, phosphate remover, and algae treatment, and the annual consumable spend per tank runs $200 to $400. Over 10 years, one tank generates $2,000 to $4,000 in repeat purchases. A peace lily costs $4 at Home Depot. A snake plant costs $5, a spider plant costs $3. They do not expire, they do not need replacing. They reproduce. The spider plant literally hands you free baby plants that you can place on another tank or give to a friend. I'm going to walk you through all three in the order I recommend setting them up. Plant 1. The peace lily, Spathiphyllum. This is the workhorse. If you only add one land plant to your tank, make it this one. The peace lily produces a dense, fibrous root network that does two things simultaneously. First, it physically traps floating particulate waste, the tiny suspended debris that makes your water look hazy even when your parameters test fine. The roots act as a living mechanical filter, catching particles as water circulates through the root mass. Second, those same roots provide a massive colonization surface for beneficial nitrifying bacteria. One mature peace lily root system hosts more bacteria than a dozen filter cartridges combined. But the reason I put this plant first is phosphate. Peace lilies are aggressive phosphate absorbers. Phosphate is the single biggest driver of algae growth in a home aquarium, and it is the one compound that most mechanical filters do absolutely nothing to remove. Your cartridge catches particles. It does not touch dissolved phosphate, the peace lily does. It pulls phosphate directly out of the water column through its roots and uses it as fertilizer for leaf growth. The more phosphate in your water, the faster the plant grows, the more phosphate it absorbs. Here's how you set it up. Buy a peace lily from any garden center or home improvement store, $4 to $8 for a healthy plant in a 4-inch pot. Remove it from the pot, wash all the soil off the roots completely. Soil in your tank will cause a bacterial bloom and cloud the water for days. Rinse until the water runs clear. Then place the plant on top of your tank so the roots hang down into the water and the leaves sit above the surface in the air. You can use a simple plastic basket, a piece of egg crate cut to size, or a terracotta pot with the bottom removed, set across the rim of the tank as a holder. The peace lily thrives in low to moderate indirect light. You do not need a grow lamp. A room with a window is enough. It will begin absorbing ammonia and phosphate within 48 hours. Within 2 to 3 weeks, you will see new white roots forming. Those are water-adapted roots, and they are even more efficient at nutrient absorption than the original soil roots. Within 6 weeks, the root mass will have doubled, and the filtration capacity of your tank will have increased proportionally. Do not fertilize it. Your fish waste is the fertilizer. That is the entire point. Plant 2. St. George's sword, Sansevieria, the snake plant. This one does something no other plant on this list does. It works at night. Most plants photosynthesize during the day and respire at night, consuming oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide after the lights go off. In a heavily planted tank, this nighttime gas exchange can actually cause oxygen dips that stress fish, especially in smaller tanks with limited surface agitation. The snake plant uses a different metabolic pathway called CAM photosynthesis, crassulacean acid metabolism. It opens its stomata at night instead of during the day, absorbing carbon dioxide in the dark and storing it as malic acid, then processing it into sugars during daylight hours with the stomata closed to conserve water. What this means for your tank is that while every other plant in and on your aquarium has shut down for the night, the snake plant is still working, still stabilizing your water chemistry during the exact hours when most tanks are at their most vulnerable. Its root system is tough, fibrous, and highly resistant to rot, which matters because many land plants develop root rot when kept in standing water permanently. The snake plant does not. I have had snake plant roots submerged in tank water for years without a single sign of decay. It consumes dissolved organic waste compounds that other plants ignore, the complex nitrogen-containing organics that build up in mature tanks and give the water that faint yellow tint over time. Setup is the same as the peace lily. Remove from pot, wash roots clean, position with roots in water and leaves in air. Snake plants are sold at virtually every garden center, hardware store, and even grocery stores for $5 to $8. Plant 3, the spider plant, Chlorophytum comosum. This is the fastest of the three, and it is the one your fish will thank you for. Spider plants grow rapidly in a nutrient-rich environment, which is exactly what your fish tank is. They produce roots at a rate most aquatic plants cannot match. Those roots are fine, light-colored, and prolific. Within a month of placing a spider plant over a tank, the root mass fills the upper water column like a living forest. Small fish, tetras, rasboras, fry, shrimp, immediately begin using those roots as shelter. You will see behavior changes within days. Fish that hid behind decorations start swimming openly through the root canopy. Shrimp graze the biofilm that forms on the root surfaces. Fry survival rates in my tanks increased noticeably after I started using spider plants, because the root mass gives them a refuge that no plastic decoration replicates. But the reason this plant earns its place on the list is speed. The spider plant absorbs ammonia, nitrate, and according to the NASA study, formaldehyde, benzene, and xylene from its surrounding environment. In an aquarium context, it strips dissolved toxins faster than either the peace lily or the snake plant in the first 30 days, because it is simply growing faster and producing more root surface area in less time. And here's the detail that makes the spider plant unique among all three. It produces runners, long stems with baby plants attached, that you can clip off and place on another tank, give to a friend, or simply leave to dangle above the waterline. Each baby plant is a complete, self-sustaining copy of the parent. One $3 spider plant from a garden center can become 10 within a single growing season. You are not buying a filter, you're buying a factory that manufactures more filters for free. Setup is identical to the other two. Remove from pot, rinse roots, position over the tank. Spider plants prefer bright, indirect light, but tolerate low light adequately. They grow in almost any condition. They cost $3 to $5 at any store that sells houseplants, the three together. When you run all three on a single tank, you have a filtration system that covers every hour of the day, every major toxin, and every layer of the water column. The peace lily handles phosphate and heavy particulate trapping. The snake plant handles nighttime gas exchange and complex organic waste. The spider plant handles rapid ammonia and nitrate absorption and provides biological shelter for livestock. Combined cost under $12 one time. Combined replacement schedule never. Combined chemical input required 0. Your filter cartridge does one thing, does it poorly, and needs replacing every month. These three plants do 6 things, do all of them well, and get better at it over time. Everything I have taught across this channel, the filterless substrate system, the plant dip method, the stocking ratios, and now these 3 land plants, is organized in one place. It is called the Yoshida Aquarium System. Link in the description. But stay right here because there is one mistake people make with this method that ruins the entire setup, and if I do not tell you now, you will almost certainly make it. The most common way people fail with land plants on a fish tank is soil. They buy the plant, leave it in the pot, and sit the whole thing on top of the tank with the pot submerged. Within 3 days, the organic potting mix breaks down, releases a massive spike of ammonia and tannins into the water, triggers a bacterial bloom, and the tank goes cloudy overnight. The fish get stressed. The water smells. The person blames the plant, throws it away, and goes back to buying cartridges. The plant was never the problem. The soil was. Every land plant you place on a fish tank must be bare-rooted. No soil, no potting mix, no coco coir, nothing but clean roots and clean water. Rinse until the water runs clear. If there are stubborn clumps of soil stuck in the root ball, soak it in a bucket of clean water for an hour and gently work the soil free with your fingers. This step is not optional. Skip it, and nothing else I have told you today will work the way it should. The second mistake is light. Peace lilies and snake plants tolerate low light. Spider plants prefer moderate to bright, indirect light. If you place a spider plant in a dark corner of a room with no window, it will grow slowly, produce fewer roots, and absorb less. Put it where it gets indirect daylight for at least 4 to 6 hours, and it will grow fast enough to visibly change the clarity of your water within 2 weeks. The third mistake is overfeeding the fish. This system works because the plants consume what the fish produce. If you dump excess food into the tank 3 times a day, the waste output overwhelms the plant roots the same way it overwhelms a filter. Feed once a day. Feed only what the fish consume completely within 60 seconds. My grandfather's rule was simple: if there is food on the bottom of the tank after 1 minute, you fed too much. Reduce by half tomorrow. The plants can handle a properly fed tank indefinitely. They cannot handle a tank being used as a garbage disposal. Get the soil out, get the light right, get the feeding right. Those 3 things are the difference between a person who tries this once and gives up and a person who never buys a filter cartridge again. You did not lose this knowledge because it stopped working. You lost it because someone with a cartridge replacement cycle figured out how to charge you $140 a year for something 3 houseplants could do permanently for $12. For 50 years in my fish house in Niigata, every tank has had land plant roots growing into the water. My grandfather did it before me. His father did it before him. Not one of us has ever purchased a phosphate remover, an algaecide, or a bottle of bacteria starter. The plants do the work. They have always done the work. The industry just made sure you never found out. Tell me one thing in the comments. Which of the 3 plants are you going to set up first? The peace lily, the snake plant, or the spider plant? Tell me which one, and tell me what size tank you're putting it on. I read every comment, and the plant that shows up most is the one I build the next deep dive video around. Share this video with one person you know who is still spending money every month on cartridges and chemicals and wondering why their water never looks right. Just one person. That is all it takes to break the cycle. Subscribe not because I need the number, but because what we are doing on this channel is bigger than tips. We are pulling knowledge back into the daylight that was never hidden, just never worth marketing to you. The next video I'm putting together is about the single cheapest substrate on the planet, $5 for a bag that lasts the life of your tank, that Japanese breeders have used for decades to eliminate every ammonia spike before it starts. The pet store sells you a $14 bag of colored gravel that does nothing. This substrate does everything. And the reason it works has to do with a property called cation exchange capacity, which I will explain in full when that video drops. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. The fish do not care about your brand name. They care about the water, and now you know how to grow the cleanest water they have ever lived in.